Friends. Who doesn't love Friends? No. Apparently all the youngsters are watching Friends now.
Oh, I'm surprised,
And
really.
I feel like saying to them...
It does keep going round and round again.
It never stops, does it, on some of these channels?
No, it's very, very good. I'm an absolute addict. I've been an addict for so long. I can tell you what the next line is in the dialogue. It's that bad.
Oh, dear. Anyway, look, Matthew Perry. Chandler Bing has laid bare his struggles with addiction ahead of the release of his memoir.
Yeah, I mean, it's extraordinary. They've released little bits of the memoir, and he's done one interview in the States so far, and it is very raw. He was actually brought to the verge of tears during an interview with Diane Sawyer, in which footage of him looking really emaciated was shown.
Well, let's talk to our showbiz reporter, Ellie Phillips, who's here. Good morning.
Good morning, guys.
We knew at the time something was going on.
Yes.
Because he went from being sort of an ordinary shape to becoming very thin, to becoming quite chunky and all that.
Yeah, and as you said, excerpts from this upcoming memoir, which was released in 2 days, actually have been released. And one of them has said previously that he himself can identify what abuse he was doing to himself at what time, according to his weight. So he said when he was very overweight on the show, he was drinking alcohol excessively, and that when he was really, really thin, he was taking pills. And actually, at the height of his addiction, he was on 55 painkillers a day.
That's Vicodin, isn't it? Vicodin. That's the really strong painkiller. It's opioid.
Yeah, which if anyone's not seen Dope Sick, I would really urge you to go and watch it. It's a show, an American show that really explains it inside out. It's a really good watch. Michael Keaton, fantastic. We don't know that much about it here because we don't have access to that level of painkiller for long term.
Over the counter.
Over the counter. But over in America, it's huge. And he is such an example, Matthew Perry, of how bad this can be. You know, he was hospitalised 4 years ago when his colon burst because of the abuse he'd done to himself. He was in a coma. So it really is extreme.
Didn't the doctors tell him he had a 2% chance of recovery?
Exactly. And so he's like, how have I even survived all this? So I think his memoir is going to help a lot of people, hopefully, to understand the early signs, how to get out of it, to acknowledge it, to get the help that you need. But like you said, he did this interview with Diane Sawyer on Good Morning America. He broke down in tears and she played a clip of him in 1997. So this was about 4 years after he joined Friends, and he was at his thinnest. He weighed about 126 pounds, and he's a 6 foot man. To put that in context, I'm 5'2". I'm a very small person. I weigh about that, and he's 6 foot. So you can imagine.
He did look. I mean, I remember those episodes. He looked painful.
But also, you've got to remember, as we all know, you look larger on screen than you do in real life. So in real life, it must have been really bad. And in this Diane Sawyer interview, you also said that Jennifer Aniston, who played Rachel in Friends, that she confronted him about his substance abuse. And at this point, it was one of the points she confronted him was alcohol, and he thought he'd hidden it well. And she said, we can all smell it on you. We know something's wrong. We want to help you.
See, what makes me really sad about this, he's been clean for some time, hasn't he? But it says it's the health problems that he's now suffering as a result of stuff that was done decades ago.
Absolutely. I mean, he was hospitalised in 2000, I think it was, with pancreatitis, which comes from excessive alcohol abuse. And so it really has taken its toll on his body. But this all started, this wasn't someone who went out to a club and was like, let me do drugs. He was in a jet ski accident and was given Vicodin. This was in 1997. And that's what kicked off his addiction to opioids. But he himself has said, you know, he has an addictive personality. And so it was alcohol and the opioids that he dabbled between.
What the remarkable thing is, I mean, and if you read what he says, I mean, he was terribly, terribly addicted and often very, very ill. He was still functioning as an actor. I mean, he was still brilliant in Friends, wasn't he?
And he said categorically he'd never taken anything on set. You know, he turned up, he did his job properly, but I think at the back of his mind the whole time he was waiting to be able to go and do what he felt he needed to do to get through.
It's what you need to, because you heard about this. I remember all this with George Best and things when he passed away. There's all this talk about how many people in the UK are what they call functioning alcoholics. Yes. You think they're not an alcoholic because they're not having scotch for breakfast or whatever it may be, but actually functioning alcoholics, like functioning drug abusers like that. I mean, it's a very odd situation.
It is, and also I think, as anyone with an addiction will say, they never cured from it. It's something that you live with for your whole life. In fact, Matthew Perry first went into rehab back in 1997 for this, and then it took for him when his colon burst. At that point, he had a colostomy bag fitted for 9 months, and the hospital and the doctors said to him, when you next want to go and take another opioid, I think it's either this or, that means a colostomy bag. And it took that level of extremity for him to actually be able to kick it for, as long as he has done now.
He seems very unhappy still, though, doesn't he? I mean, you wonder why he's written the book, too. Does he need the money?
Possibly, but the thing is that he's been open about is that he said when he joined Friends back in 1994, he thought that was the best thing, and he was on this high for like 8 months, and very quickly he realised actually being famous and being successful in that way wasn't going to solve other problems that he had, and it wasn't a quick fix. And so, yes, you're right, he's openly said there are things that he's been very unhappy with him.
And he was in a very close relationship with Julia Roberts, which I never knew, actually, although she did appear in one episode, which was very funny. And he said he dumped her because he felt so insecure in the relationship because she was a movie star and he was only a TV star.
And we're like, but you're Chandler Bing, you know, this is, to us, that's crazy. But also, he said, not just of that relationship, but of other relationships, it's always been him who's ended them and pushed people away because he was so scared of people realising the truth about him and how he really lives.
And then tell us what he says as well about when Julia Roberts, about 5 years later, got her Oscar and he watched her on television getting the Oscar. And do you remember what he said? He said he was in rehab at the time and he was shaking and shivering on the floor with other people shaking and shivering on the floor in total, you know, basically drying out, actually. He was in rehab and he watched her on the television getting her Oscar and realised how far apart their worlds had become. He was this hopeless addict on the floor and she was this glamorous star getting her Oscar.
And honestly, like, his career could have gone in that same way as well. You know, we don't really... What's he done since Friends, really?
He's done quite a few things.
But nothing on that
huge,
scale, nothing where you'd be like with, you know, those other stars and you think it impacts your life in so many ways. The health, the career, the family, everything.
Yeah, well...